Okay, we're live. We're going to take a look at some of the Jamil Jivani story that's been developing. He's getting a lot of flack, and I mean, there's actually a lot to get to, but I'm going to start with this video here from Javil. It's called "On My Way to Washington, D.C." So we'll get a little bit of the buildup, and then we'll get into some of the recent commentary in Canada.
I'm on my way to Washington, D.C., and I want to explain to you, the Canadian people, exactly why, because you're probably going to hear about it.
That's for sure.
I'm going to Washington because I want to help Prime Minister Mark Carney be successful in negotiating a trade deal with the United States. Now, that might sound counterintuitive because I am a principled conservative. He is our liberal prime minister. But the reality is that this is not a partisan issue. CUSMA and trade with the United States is so important to the Canadian economy and to our future as an independent, self-reliant nation that conservatives and liberals don't need to fight over this at all. In fact, we need to work together. The leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, has said as much. He has offered help from conservatives to the Liberal government on this issue, and I'm acting on that. In my opinion, this is not about posturing or politics. This is about business and workers. This is about unions and entrepreneurs. This is about whether we have a growing economy with stability for investment.
Why isn't Jamil the leader? At least he's trying to do something.
An opportunity for our young people, or whether our economy is perpetually in a state of uncertainty. I'm kind of sick and tired of the politics on this issue. I'm sick and tired of the posturing and the virtue signaling. I'm sick and tired of people being worried about what someone's going to call you on Facebook.
Yes. Oh my gosh, bro. Again, I don't even care. I'm going to keep being negative to Poilievre until things change. Why can't Poilievre say this? What's the point of Poilievre's entire job? Just to complain about prices? Anything controversial, Poilievre won't touch.
Or on social media.
People should just honestly, like, the Canadian people deserve better than Poilievre. And if you like him, that's fine. But I do not think he's doing a good job at all.
About what someone's going to call you on Facebook or on social media comments, what the media might say. The reality is that there are people suffering right now in our country because of the state of our economy. And in as much as we want Canada to be as strong and independent as possible, the reality is that 3/4 of our exports go to the United States. And if we want an economy that is good for our young people, if we want an economy that supports public services for seniors in our communities, we've got to work with the Americans. There are people who've been...
Again, why can't Poilievre say this? I'm going to sound like a broken record probably when I'm talking about federal politics, but it's just so obvious that Poilievre is being a weak leader right now.
Running around this country for over a year now, talking about their elbows, flapping about. I just don't find that impressive. I don't find it serious. I take this issue seriously. And as a guy who went to law school in the United States and has a strong network there, I think I have something to offer to help build bridges of communication between our two countries. And that's exactly what I'm going to do.
This is what actual political courage looks like, because this is not popular right now in the Laurentian elite bubble. This is actual political courage, not clamoring on about climate change or whatever, elbows up. This is truly going against the grain of the elite narrative. And I firmly believe most Canadians actually agree with Jivani on this.
I'm alarmed when I see things like...
A lot of people are brainwashed, but anyway.
Talking about China and communist governments and doing more business with them. I get alarmed when I see announcements of electric vehicles now being imported into Canada while we have a crisis in our auto industry. I get alarmed in my home community.
But it's the way it is. Even if you're correct, I'll even grant you maybe there could be more diversification in trade in an ideal world. Although no matter what, Canada's going to have a ton of trade with America. Just the geographic position. America's the world superpower, largest economy. Maybe you could have a little more diversification, sure, to Europe and Asia. And maybe that wouldn't even be the worst thing in the world, but it doesn't matter even what you do. America's always going to be the most important country to Canada, and it will never, ever, ever even be close. So, sure, but I don't think whining about Trump is getting the country anywhere. It's not. I mean, the data would back that up, and even lately now, even more food inflation in Canada.
Home community, when I see museums in Oshawa, like the Tank Museum or the Auto Museum, offering free admission to GM employees to do everything they can to just stand in solidarity with people whose lives have been turned upside down because of the economic uncertainty, the tariffs, and the lack of a good trade relationship with our biggest trading partner. So yeah, I say this to you knowing what's about to come my way. I know what all the critics are going to say, and I know what all the frothing elbow wave.
It'll always be the number one trading partner. You could spend the next 50 years trying to diversify the trade away, and USA will still be number one. There's no way. It's not even close. China is number two, and America is something like Canada's 8 times more trade with America than China, something like that.
Being anti-American activists are about to say about me. But I just don't care. I care more about you.
Again, actual political courage, because that's true. People are losing their minds over this. Even the Conservative Party, by the way, I don't even think they would like this, but the weak Conservative Party is not representing the people.
I care more about the Canadian people, the people who want a future in this country and know that we need serious leadership, the people who believe that you elect people to do what's right and to stand up for you and fight for you.
Are you even listening, Michael? Do you have like earplugs in or something? I've said more than TDS. Hop on the stream if you want to debate with me.
Above any kind of partisanship. I took this job because I thought there was important work that needed to be done in our country. And I thought that
you can click that link and come onto the stream if you want, Michael.
That on behalf of the great people of Bowmanville, Oshawa North, I would have a chance to do some great work. And that's my motivation. So no matter what you hear, no matter what they say, I just want you to hear directly from me. I think you deserve good leadership in this country. And I think you deserve people who are going to cut through all the noise, cut through all the posturing and the virtue signaling, and just try to deliver something good for you and your kids. And to me, that's what a trade deal with the United States promises. It promises more stability so that we can grow our economy and that our country can be strong and awesome and live up to its enormous potential.
How about that? How about grow the economy? You barely even hear politicians talk about that. If they ever talk about economic issues, it's affordability. How about growing the pie? It seems like Canada has just truly given up on that.
And I think that's what we all want. And that's why I'm going to Washington, D.C.
Good. Again, actual political courage.
Listening.
Shout out Jamil. Okay, we're going to get a few more videos. We actually got quite a few here. This probably won't be the longest stream, though, but I do have quite a few things to cover. Now here's Jamil. This is February 5. He's in Washington, D.C.
Hello, Canada. I'm here in Washington, D.C., where I've been having some very productive, promising, and positive conversations with the White House, with the State Department, with senators representing border states that we do a lot of business with in Canada. And I got to tell you, I'm feeling hopeful and optimistic that we can get something really good done for Canadian workers and businesses. Might take some time, but I really believe that the doors are open here. Positive.
How dare he? How dare Jamil do this? How dare he try to make the relationship with America better? How dare you do that?
Conversations are possible. I have made some jokes about the United States becoming Canada's 11th province. Americans don't seem that interested. They seem happy with their country, but I am really hoping that I can bring my insights and what I've learned here back to Ottawa, share them with Prime Minister Mark Carney and Minister Dominic LeBlanc. And this can be the beginning of a truly nonpartisan approach to working with the United States. This is not a partisan issue. It's not about liberals or conservatives. This is about Canadian workers and Canadian businesses and how we can make sure our economy is growing and our economy is thriving. I will be heading home tomorrow, back to Bowmanville, Oshawa North. But before then, I will be meeting with some business leaders that I'm really looking forward to hearing from, as they are job creators that employ thousands of Canadians. And I can't wait to get back home this weekend to see my wonderful niece and nephew. God bless you. God bless Canada.
Shout out Jamil. We got some more stuff here. We'll get to that actually after this. You know what? It's probably appropriate to play this now. So this is from CBC. I don't exactly know when this soundbite or what even the soundbite's from, but this is from CBC, as you can see there. And he is right when he says this. I'll play it here. There's a good chance you probably already heard this.
We are shooting ourselves in the foot if we continue this anti-America, hissy fit. And this is the kind of reason I'm trying to talking to our government and some of the liberals who have just gone way off the reservation on this. And, the ball is in Prime Minister Mark Carney's court. Like, I've offered to help him. I think it'd be awesome if we went down there together. I think we'd get a lot done working together. But he's got to decide whether that's something he wants to do or not.
He's right. Why can't Pierre say that? What's the point even of voting for Pierre if he can't distinguish himself from Carney? I don't know. Either Pierre is insecure on foreign policy, so he doesn't even want to go there because he thinks Carney will make him look stupid, or it's just uniparty stuff, and Pierre actually just agrees with Carney on a lot of this stuff. It doesn't really make any sense to me. Why can't Pierre say that? We are in an anti-American hissy fit, and we have been for way too long. This guy here, Warren Kinsella, I don't give a damn if you're liberal or a conservative. You don't go to the U.S., as Jivani did, and S on your country. You particularly don't do that when your country is under attack by the U.S. When are we not in a crisis? Climate crisis, COVID crisis, American tariff crisis. These people just want the regular citizens to constantly be panicking. I can't see Poilievre being happy about any of this. He's clever enough to know that Jivani will feature prominently in liberal attack ads, bro. This is all the conservatives care about. The federal conservatives is being called names. That's not a real policy. They don't stand for anything. They stand for being nice and not being criticized by the CBC. Ads that may be coming sooner than later. Bro, this is so pathetic. It's actually like there's no other word to say it. This is so clown world that our country, the conservatives in the country, are so pathetic that all they care about is not being called names by maybe 500 people that live in Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa, that go on TV and work at newspapers and stuff like that. That seems to be the Conservative Party's primary focus in life is, how do I get 500 people that live in downtown Toronto, Montreal, and Ottawa to like me? Even if they'll never vote for me and the people that support them will never vote for me, as long as they don't think I'm extreme, I'm doing my job. We can't even really have policy debates in Canada because the Conservative Party doesn't even show up. This is why, again, all the Western independence movements make a whole lot more sense when you don't even get represented at a federal level. Premier Ford, who is just the biggest fake conservative ever, him and Jason Kenney.
Conservative MP Jamil Jivani said Canadians are shooting ourselves in the foot with anti-American hissy fits. I think he's talking about you.
Well, I something, I really don't care what he says about me because I gave him the chance. No one would even know who Jamil Jivani was unless I hired the guy in my office.
No one would know who you were if it wasn't for your brother's craziness, I would say. So you could say that about you too. Rob Ford talking about cocaine and having plenty to eat at home. I mean, I'm sure that boosts your name recognition. So you want to play that card. Get the heck out of here, fat Doug Ford.
No one would even know who.
I'll say high BMI. I'll try to be more PC. High BMI, Doug Ford, because whatever. If you're overweight, it's all good, I guess. But Doug Ford, man. Oh my gosh. This guy's conservative.
No one would even know who Jamil Jivani was unless I hired the guy in my office. I didn't know him from a hole in the ground, but in saying that, I am happy that he went down in the U.S. I'm happy when I see other premiers go down to the U.S. and lobby. But no, I don't call it a hissy fit. What I call is making sure we communicate with the American people, like I just did half an hour ago with the former governor, and continue advocating to our American friends that as we get closer to this Kuzma deal, that our voice is being heard in the U.S. and make sure that the administration in the U.S. understands it's going to hurt Americans. Tariff on Canada is a tax on the American people.
I mean, if you close your eyes when you hear Ford speak, it just sounds like a liberal. Same with Poilievre lately. Jivani's the only person giving another point of view.
That they need to take the Ronald Reagan approach. You know, you can't unscramble an egg. You got to make the omelet larger. My favorite saying, especially in the auto sector.
Oh my gosh, man. Okay, there's some more stuff here I have. We covered that, but there is more to get to. I'll cover that maybe in another video. I'm going to briefly touch on this topic because I'm going to go, just give me 1 second, to Poilievre's Twitter page. And he says here, I don't see him saying anything about Jivani. Like he should literally be saying, yes, it is an anti-American hissy fit. And not only that, Poilievre is not even commented on. I think today is the day. You could say, oh, the weekend, it was family day yesterday. He should be commenting on the gender ideology stuff in Tumbler Ridge. And he should be commenting on the crazy story out of Alberta with that trans person that stabbed their child. But he just, like, this is just the most easy stuff for Poilievre to say. Oh, the food inflation, which he should bring that up too, but Poilievre picks and chooses. If you want to be a political commentator like me, you can pick and choose. But if you're in politics and you're the leader of the opposition, you have to go at every story. You can't just pick and choose. If people want to talk about it, you're the leader, man. Trump talks about every story. For the most part, he doesn't like, I don't know if Trump wants to talk about all of these, but Donald Trump doesn't pick and choose and they win. Does anyone in Canada that's the CPC even care about winning? This story here, Poilievre should have commented on by now.
Good morning, City of Calgary. I have a factoid for you. Did you know that it is illegal to ash on the ground in Calgary?
You want to know what else is illegal? Stabbing your kids. Yeah, but you already knew that, didn't you?
And then this guy, Life with
He's
Sondland,
Calgary,
talks about this. I'm only going to play a little bit of this video, but that guy is just driving around. Look at the car he's in.
These Calgary men found the monster at a gas station. Watch this.
So look at this. Look at this car this guy's driving around in. You don't think that person's asking for attention? Nobody has a car like that. It's just a bunch of spray paint all over the car. You're obviously asking for attention. It's so disgusting that this person's not in jail. And then Poilievre, where's your comment on this? There's no defense of this. Again, MAGA in America wins because they don't shy away from everything. Poilievre shies away from everything. Like, oh, it's just so sad. Okay, I'm gonna get back to Jamil Jivani here. I got some other stuff coming, but I'll start here. Just pulling up some other stuff. I'll read the chat a little bit too, but I don't think this will be the longest stream. I'll probably stream for another 30 minutes or so, but I'm having fun so far. Okay, this one here, it's sort of Poilievre and Jivani. It's just a short, but it says I haven't even watched the clip yet. It says Poilievre says Jivani speaks for himself and I speak for the party. I'm gonna watch the clip first before I judge it.
Well, he speaks for himself and I speak for the party. Canadians are legitimately upset by the unjustifiable tariffs and comments that the president has made. And, you know, as the Prime Minister has said, nobody can control Donald Trump. As Mr. Harper said, we have to focus not on how the president's words and deeds make us feel, but on what we can do to adapt.
So what do you say? What do you say, Poilievre? He just said what.
Well, he
other
speaks for
people
himself,
said.
and I speak for the party.
Man, he should agree with Jivani that there is an anti-American hissy fit. There obviously is. But whatever. Apparently, Poilievre is not interested in actually winning an election, which is sad. I'll go to this clip here, CTV. This came out just 37 minutes ago, at least on YouTube. MP Jivani says Canadian officials having an anti-American hissy fit over trade with the U.S. We'll play this from the top. It's just loading, I guess.
Well, he speaks for himself, and I speak for the party.
Do you think his trip to Washington was helpful to Canada?
Well, my view is that he represents a riding that has been disproportionately impacted by the dispute. He's from just outside of Oshawa. 1,200 Ottawa-Oshawa residents have lost their jobs in part due to the tariffs. And I think that it's necessary for all MPs to use all the connections and work.
Yeah, this is an interesting point, Kent. You're right. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
Work that they can in order to overturn the tariffs and protect Canadian jobs.
Thing is, if his interests do align with the interests of the average Canadian, whatever, I'm fine with that. Like, I'm not saying all these politicians are doing 100% of what they do always for other people. Of course, there's like an incentive to be the prime minister or whatever, because you get the power, you get the fun life, you get lots of notoriety, things like that. But yeah,
Conservative leader.
I still do think Jivani had courage to do that. It would have been easier for him to not go to the USA and do all that, because he is putting himself a little bit at political risk. Like, I'm sure some people in the Conservative Party aren't thrilled about it, the weak ones anyway.
Pierre Poilievre, they're reacting to recent comments from Jamil Jivani, one of his own MPs, who said Canada is shooting itself in the foot with how it's handling relations with the U.S. In an interview with...
I agree with this, Mike. It'll be Liberals. I think the Liberals will win a majority for sure.
SiriusXM's Breitbart News Saturday, Jivani said Canadians are
Jivani might lose his seat over this. I mean, we'll see.
Themselves with a, quote, anti-American hissy fit on trade. Ontario Premier Doug Ford fired back at those comments today.
I really don't care what he says about me, because I gave him the chance. No one would even know who Jamil Jivani was unless I hired the guy in my office. I didn't know him from a hole in the ground. But in saying that, I am happy that he went down to the U.S. I'm happy when I see other premiers go down to the U.S. and lobby. But no, I don't call it hissy fit. What I call is making sure we communicate with the American people, like I just did half an hour ago with the former governor, and continue advocating to our American friends that as we get closer to this Kuzma deal, that our voice is being...
Yeah, Han, and Poilievre and the CPC won't even bring that up. And I know people will say, well, what is there to bring up? He should just say it. Who cares? It's like the art and science of politics. Just mention it. Well, even if Poilievre said, hey, Mark Carney, why are you in the Epstein files? Just have the media talk about that for a week. All people will see is, oh, it's the Epstein files. Mark Carney, do you want to win? Trump does stuff like that all the time. I don't know the motivation for Trump to do it, but they're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats, the people that came in. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. I've listened to that quote like probably 20 times, but what say stuff like that? Who cares? It's called winning. The Poilievre conservative philosophy is, let's never have logical fallacies in our argument. And the Liberals don't care. The Liberals bash everything all the time, make humongous claims about climate change that there will never have to be proven out. Or, I mean, maybe they will in like 20, 30 years when none of the things they say actually happen. But the Liberals don't care. They appeal to emotion 24/7.
Heard in the U.S.
Mr. Jivani just returned from a solo trade mission to Washington, where he says he met with U.S. President Donald Trump, longtime friend Vice President J.D. Vance, and other top officials in the Trump administration. After returning, he met with the minister overseeing trade with the U.S., Dominic LeBlanc, and LeBlanc's office called the meeting productive at the time. So what is our front bench?
He said he wants to help. He can't even negotiate. He's not in the cabinet. He's obviously friends with J.D. Vance, but he said he wants to help. That's all he can do. And what he did, I would say, definitely does help because it shines a light on a liberal incompetence in Canada. But there's not much he actually can do unless Carney lets him help.
Panel make of Jivani's post-trip comments and both Mr. Poilievre and Premier Ford's reaction to them. Let's bring the panel in. Dan Moulton is a former senior advisor to the Liberal Ontario governments of Delta McGuinty and Kathleen Wynne. He's now a partner with Crestview Strategy. Shakir Chambers worked in Prime Minister Stephen Harper's office before becoming a policy advisor to the International Trade Minister. Kathleen Monk is former director of communications to the late Jack Layton. She's now the principal owner of Monk & Associates.
I'm pretty behind on chats, but whatever, all good.
Laura Stone is a Queen's Park reporter for the Globe and Mail. Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Laura, I'll start with you because it was you who asked Premier Ford that question. What do you make of how Mr. Poilievre and the Premier are responding to this today?
Well, look, I mean, clearly in the Ford comments, there's no love lost between those political figures. They have a long history together. And as you'll recall, Jamil Jivani gave a blistering interview on election night, essentially blaming Doug Ford for the Conservatives' loss. And he's also criticized their COVID-era education policies. But look, I mean, I think the big question coming out of this trip and the comments to Breitbart were, who does Jamil Jivani speak for? And I think it was important and notable that Pierre Poilievre came out today and said bluntly, he speaks for himself and I speak for the party. So I think there were a lot of questions.
Yeah, another mistake by Poilievre
Here about whether Mr. Poilievre would respond, whether this is a challenge to his leadership from a member of his caucus, and whether there's some mixed messaging going on the Conservatives' position on Canada-U.S. relations, and that has been a perceived weakness for the Conservative Party. So he obviously came out today knowing some mixed messaging going on the Conservatives' position on Canada-U.S. relations, and that has been a perceived weakness for the Conservative Party. So
she's right. It is a perceived weakness because the Conservative Party has no position. I don't even know what they stand for. At least Jivani made a point and said this anti-American hissy fit stuff needs to stop. What is Poilievre's position? Because if Poilievre says nothing, which he's been doing, I just assume he agrees with Carney. I'm sure every Canadian pretty much assumes that. And it's insane because the more Poilievre panders to the middle, those people will never vote for him. The quote unquote middle in Canada, he's never going to get their vote. They think he's crazy anyway. All they will talk about is he's like Trump. He's like Trump. Even if he tries to be the nicest person ever, he could pay for their schooling, their retirement plans. He could just, I don't know, whatever. They'd still vote Liberal.
He obviously came out today knowing he was going to be asked about this. I guess the question coming out of it is, do we see further challenges from
Poilievre?
Mr. Jivani, further, trips or comments he makes that seemingly challenge Mr. Poilievre and what he's going to do about it. But clearly, these two leaders have had, certainly on the Premier Ford's part, have had a negative experience with Mr. Jivani. Poilievre did defend him somewhat in terms of representing his constituents, but it sort of feels like this is not the end of the story of Mr. Jivani.
I'll just take your word for this, but yeah, Poilievre, yeah, anyway.
Jivani's kind of comments and outbursts, you could call it, and whether he's going to take attention away from Mr. Poilievre and his positions as the leader of the Conservative Party.
What are Poilievre's positions as the leader of the Conservative Party? Anti-carbon tax, tougher on crime. Those are the two things Poilievre wants to talk about. Everything else, he just wants to pretend they don't exist.
Yeah, I think Laura's right, Kathleen, that it is notable that Mr. Poilievre did say, he speaks for himself.
And if Poilievre is so tough on crime, why doesn't he not talk about this story here with this person going around Calgary in this brightly painted car? If you're so tough on crime, Poilievre, what's your stance on this? Crickets. It's actually pathetic.
Speak for the party. I think part of the reason why a question to Mr. Poilievre on this was so anticipated is we haven't heard from him since Mr. Jivani returned, but also in the right before the trip, He gave his speech at the Conservative Convention where he, resoundingly passed his leadership review. But one of the standouts for people who weren't inside the room was certainly the absence of the name Trump or much talk about his position on Trump. I saw recently, he's giving a talk, I think it is in a few weeks, very much the top name of the topic somebody flagged to me is Canada-U.S. relations. But the questions come at a time, I think, where there are bigger questions about how Mr. Poilievre will navigate the issue moving forward.
Yeah, it's not an easy day for Mr. Poilievre. Wounded leadership already with some caucus leaks and other things that were happening. But really, when Jamil Jivani went to Washington, he was auditioning. But to be clear, he was not auditioning for Prime Minister Carney's job. He's actually auditioning to be the opposition leader. And that's why you saw Pierre Poilievre come out so forcefully today. And no leader ever wants to say those words, I speak for the party, because it undercuts their authority, right? That's happened to all party leaders on different, more fringe issues in the past. And so, what Jamil Jivani was doing when he went down to Washington to do that trip was personal brand building. It wasn't statecraft of any sort.
Even if it was personal brand building, which I do think, I just agree with what Jivani did. So I don't think it was all that. But even if you take the uncharitable view that it was all for Jivani's personal brand, I still support it because Poilievre doesn't deserve unanimous support in the CPC for what he's doing. For his record, Poilievre, in the last year and a half or so, back in the middle of 24, when he was way up in the polls, sure. If someone did something like what Jivani did, it wouldn't make any sense. And yes, it would be incredibly selfish, but what has Poilievre done in the last year and a half? He blew a massive lead in the election. And I was watching Frank Vaughan, his video yesterday. He says Apple eating Pierre something turned into Pierre O'Toole. I think that's put very well. He did turn into Aaron O'Toole, Pierre O'Toole. The Pierre that eats the apples, and I've made this point before as well, that guy would have won.
Does end up kind of undercutting his own leader. And I got to say, when he comes out with a statement like, stop with the hissy fit Canadians and start dealing with America.
Yes, let's go. Finally, somebody with a big megaphone saying the obvious.
I have to ask myself, what demographic is Mr. Jivani trying to appeal to, and how
people that aren't brainwashed? There's got to be people out there that are not brainwashed yet. He's appealing to people that actually can read stats. Oh, America's our biggest trading partner by not even by far is actually underselling it. It's the biggest trading partner. You take every country on earth combined, America's still way ahead of every other country on earth combined. So.
And how does it widen his party's voter base? Because I think of all of the women and men of all ages that have taken small sacrifices or large ones in terms of losing their jobs, or smaller ones, just things like, giving up their sweet potatoes because they come from the States, or quarts of raspberries that were grown in the US. All of those people, he is just alienated.
How many times in Canadian life are people supposed to sacrifice? You just shift, you go from the sacrifice for the climate, sacrifice for COVID, and don't see your friends, don't travel, sacrifice to be elbows up. When are the people are not supposed to sacrifice? And by the way, many young people are sacrificing by never being able to afford a home and raise a family. Is that not a humongous sacrifice? It's easier for people like this to say that when I'm assuming pretty wealthy, probably have a retirement account, things like that. Sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. Meanwhile, millions of Canadians that don't have a megaphone, they don't get on CTV, are just sitting in a basement suite or living with their parents. When am I going to stop sacrificing? When does this end for me? But nobody cares because they don't have a big YouTube thing, or they don't get on CTV to tell their story.
By telling them that they are basically having a hissy fit. So he may become leader one day, Mr. Jivani, but it'll be of a rump party.
Shakir, it's interesting also because in the wake of the visit, and particularly the meeting with Dominic LeBlanc, where LeBlanc the minister called it a productive meeting, like there was actually not a lot of blowback. It was like, oh, he went. He seems to have articulated the Canadian position. He did get meetings with, very high up people in the administration. And then like the more interviews, and in particular this interview, the way in which
that was the line Keith Wilson, I think maybe 2 days ago, the video, he said something to the effect of, Alberta is the toy, so all the liberals out east can run their crazy extremist experiment. Alberta is their toy that funds all that. I'm paraphrasing. That might not be exactly what he said, but it was something like that.
He characterized the Canadian attitude as a hissy fit seems to have what's really led to a more pronounced reaction.
Yeah, I think Jamil's done a good job of getting coverage for sure, but I think it's been for all the wrong reasons. I mean, you mentioned his connection of getting.
Okay, what are look? There's. I'm going to come right back to that, but there's Vashi and then 4 other people, and these panels in Canada. Are they all going to have the same point of view? Is it just going to all be? I agree, Jamil's trip was a bad mistake. I agree, it was a mistake as well for this reason. It's so funny. CBC does this as well. Can someone just for even ratings? Can you get on someone that disagrees, or is that just not the point of these panels?
Canadian attitude as a hissy fit seems to have what's really led to a more pronounced reaction.
Yeah, I think Jamil's done a good job of getting coverage for sure, but I think it's been for all the wrong reasons. I mean, you mentioned his connection of getting these meetings in Washington. Of course, he's going to get good meetings. He's very close with J.D. Vance. That's going to open a lot of doors for you. You don't meet with the relevant people and whatnot. I would love to see a readout of those meetings, what was discussed and the response and just kind of the positioning there, if that were possible. But I think what's been missing for me, and I think we touched on it briefly with Kathy, is just I haven't really seen Pierre. Did he empower Jamil to kind of go and do this? Because I haven't really seen him proactively endorse this in any capacity in any way. And everything I've heard from Jamil since he's come back here, it's really been an I, me, and what I've achieved, not tying it into the broader Conservative Party, and really not tying it into the leader. So that's left me a little bit of head scratching. I think if you're OLO or even just a supporter of the Conservative Party, I think at a certain point you have to ask yourself, when does him going to Washington go from being very helpful to us to kind of being, kind of hurtful to the leader and then even the party, generally speaking? I think when you talk about his hissy fit comment, I haven't seen any objective observer of the larger Canada-U.S. relationship that thinks Canada is a problem, that thinks Canada is causing any obstacles. And so that even left me.
This is the conservative on the panel. Holy crap, dude. I haven't seen any objective observer. Well, what are you looking at? Liberal? Are you watching just the liberal stations? Look at this. I'll come right back to his point. Conservative strategist. Are you really conservative?
Scratching my head about how does he draw that conclusion? And to Kathleen's point, really, who is he? What audience is he playing to in this context? Just really bad at reading the room, to be quite honest with you. I think
this is not a conservative. This is actual pathetic. This is the worst take. This guy's take is worse than the other people on the panel. This is the conservative.
Point I would make here is just the rub off that it would have on Pierre Poilievre. I think common knowledge is just that the main reason why Pierre lost that last election is that most Canadian voters just said, you know what, we do believe Mark Carney is better at handling Donald Trump in Canada and U.S., rightly or wrongly, and that really, had Pierre's numbers plunge. It doesn't help.
That's actually true, but Poilievre hasn't done anything about that yet. That's why I think Poilievre may just be insecure about his knowledge on foreign policy and is afraid to criticize Carney. Because what he actually said there is true, but what has Poilievre done since to differentiate himself from Carney on how to deal with Trump? Jivani did. Jivani clearly made or articulated a different position there just when he said, let's stop the hissy fit.
I think common knowledge is just that the main reason why Pierre lost that last election is that most Canadian voters just said, you know what, we do believe Mark Carney is better at handling Donald Trump in Canada and U.S., rightly or wrongly, and that really, had Pierre's numbers plunge.
That's actually true, I think. But what has Poilievre done since that to change people's minds about how Poilievre would deal with Trump? I don't even know what Poilievre would do. That's why Does it even matter if Poilievre or Carney wins? What's the difference? I think the policy would be basically the same, but Poilievre would probably be a little better on the issue of carbon tax and hopefully crime, although I'm not sure.
It doesn't help your brand to have your MP go to Washington, come back to Canada, and give Canadians a public scolding about why we're the issue in this dynamic. It doesn't do well for PR moving forward or of the party.
Why, though? It's almost goes against what you just said. What is Poilievre supposed to do? Nothing? You think you're going to win an election by doing nothing? Sometimes I wonder if Poilievre even realizes he's in politics.
And kind of the I guess, a tougher follow of the day for Canadians. So I don't know, just I think really poorly played. As he does more interviews, as he does more talking, as he does more engagements, I think just really poorly played in terms of public communication.
Last word to you, Dan.
Well, Vash, it doesn't seem like the Conservatives are missing many opportunities to score on their own net in the court of public opinion at the moment. I mean, I don't think Mr. Poilievre's response today was strong enough.
Oh, man. There's one position in Canada.
I think he had an opportunity there to reject.
Follow politics in Canada. I think the obvious conclusion is Western independence is a good idea. This is totally a different mindset. There's one position out east, and it's liberal or liberal light.
The idea that Canada is at fault.
I don't even know if it's liberal light. It might just be liberal or liberal.
In this moment, in this crisis with the United States, and take, I think, yet another opportunity to prove that he is up to the challenge.
Yeah, I don't know, actually. Maybe. We'll see. But Poilievre did get a huge amount of support at that convention, so I don't know.
Challenge of dealing with Donald Trump and standing up for Canada in this moment. Mr. Jivani as well. I mean, to come back from D.C. and make those comments that accuse Canada of undertaking a hissy fit right now completely undermined the entire trip. I think there's a world in which his visit to D.C. and the meeting with J.D. Vance could have been marketed as a win for not just him, but for his party and for his leader. And then he's completely undermined the entire thing with these unwise comments on a far-right American news publication over the weekend. So, it just seems like a consistent trend here where the Conservatives are sort of awry and off message. We saw this just late last week as well.
I think the Conservative Party in Canada might already be cooked, though. They already are not conservative. If Alberta votes for independence, they'll just be forced to be even more liberal to try to, they probably will do that to try to win over the middle because all their safe seats in Alberta will be gone. So they'll probably just become, I mean, I don't know what'll happen, but they'll probably think we need to be even more centrist, which they already are. I would even argue the Conservative Party in Canada right now is center left, in my opinion.
Conservative MP going public that he was
maybe center, just truly center, but they're not right.
At a caucus meeting for refusing the MP pay increase. So you've got these MPs in the Conservative caucus who are just out there freelancing, doing their own thing right now. And it just seems like a consistent narrative that undermines Mr. Poilievre's leadership. And I think is highlighted through public opinion polling that the Conservatives are just in this position of weakness, looking like the ongoing losers of Canadian politics in this moment.
That's actually true, but these people think the reason they're losing is because they're not moderate enough. And the reason, in my opinion, for sure they're losing is because they're not actually conservative. But anyway, I have a little bit more in this video and then I'll end the stream. I'm going to go to a little more from Jamil Jivani here. But how's everyone doing tonight? Yeah, I guess it's tonight now. Go to this clip here from Brian Lilly and Jamil Jivani, released one day ago.
Jamil Jivani, Conservative MP for, is it Bowmanville as you're riding, Jamil?
Bowmanville, Oshawa North.
Okay, Bowmanville, Oshawa North. So you were down there talking about the GM plant. You were down there talking about auto workers. Let's talk about the other people that you met with. President Trump, that was kind of like a walkthrough. Hi, how you doing, sir? Describe it to me.
Yeah, so JD kind of gave me a tour of the White House, and the president kindly let us interrupt one of his meetings to chat with him for a bit and introduce myself. We had good conversation, and hopefully it's not the last time that we'll have a chance to speak, but I appreciated him making time to talk to me. Obviously, he's an incredibly busy person, so
he loves the Canadians.
Yes, he did ask me to share that message with with my fellow countrymen, and I kind of took that as him, making the point that however he might feel about our government, it does not reflect on his view of the people of this country, and thought it was the president asked you to share something, it's probably worth sharing, so I passed it on to everybody on Twitter.
Did he do that? I didn't even see that, where he said that the president, Prime Minister Carney, it is our duty, words cannot. I don't know where he said that, but anyway.
You met with Marco Rubio, Secretary of State. That's just one of his jobs. And if you're online at all, you've seen all the memes of him taking on every other job.
Rottweiler, I agree with this. Pierre is too much of a P to talk with Trump or go on and talk to Joe Rogan. Pierre will lose again because he is pandering to both sides to try to keep the Ontario vote. Yep, I agree. I agree with this 100%.
On the planet, those are great fun. But Secretary...
What are they censoring? Because I think YouTube is pretty good. I think maybe there was a time during COVID where it got really a little bit tough, but what are they censoring?
Rubio is one of the most, as an outsider, I would say appears to be one of the most influential cabinet ministers there. What can you tell us about that chat?
Yeah, we just talked a bit about, I shared my views on Kuzma and the urgency. He had just hosted a critical minerals.
The other thing that sucks about Poilievre is the rug pull. I think he made people believe he was different. He was combative. He was fine with sort of taking criticism, obviously like the apple eating Poilievre, that style. And now he just totally isn't cool with that. He obviously, there's some reason, I don't know the exact reason, but he doesn't want to say controversial things anymore. And I don't know the exact reason. Maybe it hurts his feelings. Maybe he just cares about his job and doesn't want to ruffle any feathers so he can continue to make whatever money he's making. But man, Poilievre, there's no point of him being in politics. He doesn't say anything profound. He parrots a few things about inflation's expensive, but there's no point. At least Jivani is trying.
Conference at the State Department right before he and I met. So we talked a bit about critical minerals, what they were hoping to accomplish at that conference. I learned a bit about the critical minerals agreement that they have done with Mexico, which unfortunately Canada is not part of, and Canada does not have an action plan on that issue with the United States right now. So yeah, just kind of just catch.
Maple Boy, I don't really get your point, but if you want, you can come on the stream and share your point of view. The link's right there if you want to hop on.
Up on what he's working on, and yeah, he's as you said, has a lot of responsibilities there. So
in terms of discussions with Rubio and Jamieson Greer, who is really, in terms of getting Kuzma settled, one of the key people. Jamieson Greer, for those that don't know the name, United States Trade Representative, he's the lead negotiator. You heard from both of them about Mexico being ahead of Canada. There's been a lot of commentators who are not just reacting to every Truth Social post Trump makes, pointing out that Mexico is ahead of us. You appear to have really gotten that sense when you were in Washington. Are they further ahead than most of us realize in terms of a trade deal compared to Canada?
Well, I think certainly and so the critical minerals issue would be one example, but another one would be both countries have, formally announced Kuzma reform talks, which, as I said about, July 1st being a deadline for the review, it's a bit alarming that 2 of the 3 countries in the trade agreement have started.
Maple Boy, hop on the stream. I don't even know what your point was really, but I don't know. Come on the stream if you want to.
that dialogue, and we have not. That really stands out to me as something that is a red flag for us. And one of the reasons why it stands out is we've been down this road before. In 2017, when Justin Trudeau was prime minister, Mexico and the United States progressed quite far along without Canada involved in talks, to the point where a bilateral agreement between those two countries was a real possibility. And Canada, sort of at the last minute, had to step in and sort of advocate to be included. Now, I probably don't need to sort of say this, but because it should be obvious, but I'll just, clarify, like, it is not the best situation for your country to be included in an agreement at the last minute. Obviously, the best case scenario is to be part of the dialogue the entire step of the way. And I do worry that we are potentially repeating the mistakes of 2017, where we're being left out, the relationship breakdown has occurred, and then we're going to wind up being shoehorned into an agreement closer to the end of, completion, where, like, at that point.
Okay, I'm going to finish with this video here, this stream, because CBC, Canada's shooting itself in the foot with anti-American hissy fit. Jivani, power and politics. We'll take a look at some of these. We'll see. These are all going to be anti-Jivani, I'm sure.
Fresh off his trip to Washington, Conservative MP Jamil Jivani has some choice words for how the government is handling trade talks with the United States. Jivani told Breitbart News that Canada is shooting itself in the foot by throwing an anti-American hissy fit over trade. Take a listen to some of what he told SiriusXM's Breitbart News Saturday.
We are shooting ourselves in the foot if we continue this anti-America, hissy fit. And this is the kind of reason I'm trying to talk into our government and some of the liberals who have just gone way off the reservation on this. And, the ball is in Prime Minister Mark Carney's court. Like, I've offered to help him. I think it'd be awesome if we went down there together. I think we'd get a lot done working together. But he's got to decide whether that's something he wants to do or not.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mark Carney has chosen the person tasked with spearheading the upcoming CUSMA negotiations. Former Privy Council Clerk Janice Charette has been named Chief Trade Negotiator to the United States. Charette will serve as a senior advisor to Carney and Canada-U.S. Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc. The power panel is here with us now. Vandana Cutter was an advisor to former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Brad Levine is a former national campaign director for the NDP. Amanda Galbraith was an advisor to former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. And here with me in studio is my old boss, Rob Russo, the Canada correspondent for The Economist. Hi, everybody. Happy Monday. Thanks for coming in on Family Day and joining your PMP family today. Amanda, I'll start with you on this Jamil Jivani stuff. He's saying that, Canadians are throwing an anti-American hissy fit. What do you make of that description? It's provoked a lot of anger online, as you've probably seen. Do you think Mr. Jivani has it right there?
No, I don't think Mr. Jivani has it right there. I'm super pumped to be the first one to talk about this issue from the conservative side. I was like, no good deed goes unpunished going on TV on Family Day Monday. Listen, I think this is a bit of an exercise in vanity on Mr. Jivani's part. Do I think there is frustration, rightly so, among Canadians, among the opposition, among premiers about the lack of transparency, and among the media, by the way, around the lack of transparency from the Carney government on the status of negotiations with the U.S., on readouts from the Prime Minister's office? Why are we learning major announcements from U.S. outlets and not here? I do think there actually is some real concerns, right concerns about that. Would I equate that to an anti-American hissy fit? Absolutely not. I think if, these efforts were, I do believe Mr. Jivani has connections there. It's very apparent. If he wanted to be a useful part of a negotiating strategy, then he could provide that information privately, not through Breitbart media. Also, to say that Canadians are undertaking an anti-American hissy fit when, I'm from Windsor, Ontario. Like, I'm seeing the absolute desecration of the auto sector, the threats around the bridge there. I mean, it's having real measurable impacts for people's jobs. It's not an anti-American hissy fit. And they're also happening in his.
Canada ruined its own economy. Give me a break. The crazy policies of Trudeau, the insane COVID lockdowns. Then after that, the economy stinks. Let's import millions of immigrants. Now people can't even find work as like a dishwasher. So Canada destroyed its own economy. Trump is just the ultimate excuse for people that are liberal that probably deep down know Liberal policies ruined Canada. I mean, maybe not. Maybe they're so deluded that they think that didn't happen. But Trump is the ultimate excuse. Canada's economy was screwed long ago.
His writing, so his writing rather. So I think Mr. Jivani needs to kind of take a beat here and really think through whether his political future in Canada wants to be reassured by being siding with the Trump White House versus Canadians.
See, yeah, I mean, they don't even want an opposition. They want a conservative party that's a punching bag that they can just rip on 24/7 and doesn't do anything back. Doesn't even try to debate them back. They want a controlled debate.
And to Amanda's point, Vandana, I mean, there's a reason why
Jivani here went outside the lines, and that they're not, people hate that. They want the easiest political debate ever, where it's like the Harlem Globetrotters against whoever the heck they played. Was it the Washington Generals or something? And everyone knows that the Liberals are just going to win. The Conservatives just pretend to be trying to win. Oh, we lost again. Oh, we lost again.
Some folks are having a quote hissy fit, right? You talking.
That was a good analogy, by the way. I just thought of that. I'm going to use that one again. It's like the Globetrotters. The Liberals are the Globetrotters. The Conservatives are, I think it was the Washington Generals.
About the auto sector, look at what happened in Ingersoll. Look what happened in Brampton. We've had 2 major plants close and literally thousands of people are out of work. The forestry sector has been obviously hard hit. The list goes on. There's a lot of reasons why Canadians are upset with Trump and his administration. What do you make of the tack that Jivani is taking here? I mean, he seems to be kind of leaning into this idea that maybe that there's a reason why America could blame Canada for some things, and that maybe we've gone overboard in terms of our criticism, our boycotts, our animosity towards the U.S. right now.
I think I hear you, Alberta, but I actually don't agree. I think Poilievre makes a mistake by pandering, but I hear you. I don't think you're saying that. Yeah, anyway.
I think Amanda sent that really well, but just to add, I think this commentary isn't going to age well, especially across Canadians. I think it doesn't really hit the fact that a lot of Canadians are struggling right now as a direct result of this administration's actions, whether it's auto workers who are unsure about their future, whether it's tariffs and the cost of living, small businesses are hurting, and people are just concerned. And I think those are real concerns. There's not a hissy fit. It's a real reason. But those comments are also reminiscent of when Trump.
They're all going to take the anti-Jivani position, obviously.
Started talking about the 51st state, and Ambassador Hoekstra was like, well, don't make a big deal about it. So I don't think Canadians would appreciate that. I don't think he's meeting the moment. And I think, it's not just what the Prime Minister is doing, but premiers across the country, across the political spectrum, Premier Eby, Doug Ford, et cetera, they're all talking about how Canada has to sit up for themselves in their own way. So I don't think Mr. Jivani is going to meet the moment. And I think, I don't think this is going to go well for him.
Meet the moment. Just slogans. Meet the moment. He's not going to meet the moment.
In the end.
Brad, what about Jivani's fundamental point? And that is that 3/4 of our exports go to the United States. We are very much dependent on what Trump does. We should try and patch things up, that we shouldn't just prolong a fight, that we should, try and get to a better, state of affairs with Trump and his administration, and that might involve
facts, PBE, facts, bro.
Humbling ourselves a bit, maybe swallowing some of the things that come our way. Do you think that Jivani might have the ticket to how we solve this issue? I mean,
yeah, there's probably other good ones. The title, I made my video in like 2 seconds, because there's actually a woman who in some type of hearings I've seen lately, she's a blonde woman. I think she's from Alberta, who I like as well. She grills people on the censorship bills and stuff like that. I've seen a few clips of her recently, maybe 2 or 3, where she is making some good points. I forget her name, but I think she's from Alberta.
Look past the hissy fit remark. Is he on to something when he says, hey, let's try and bring this together and have some sort of peaceful resolution?
Well, my understanding, and when we listen to the remarks of the Prime Minister, it's that the door has always been open. I don't know at what point the federal government of Canada closed the door and said, we're not going to talk anymore. I think that there was a lot of learning about how Trump operates. And I think at the beginning, people were flying down there every day and, worried about fentanyl and all these things. And basically, I think taking the bait. And I think the government of Canada has said, well, we're not going to race down there every time this guy tweets something out. So I think it's a little too easy for a conservative backbench critic to be able to say, what you're doing is not working. Now we can complain about the lack of
a little too easy. What does that mean? Is he agreeing with Jivani by accident there?
Results, but I don't think the average Canadian is going to be blaming Carney and the federal government. I think they're going to be blaming the Americans. Let me get to the politics. The politics of his comment that this is an anti-American hissy fit was
it a little too easy to get the entire country into a frenzy and win the election on the elbows up message? Was that too easy?
Federal government, I think they're going to be blaming the Americans. Let me get to the politics. The politics of his comment that this is an anti-American hissy fit is not just going to make news today, and maybe for a couple more days. I can see the attack ad already. That is, so many Canadians are hurting because of the uncertainty. Tens of thousands of Canadians are losing their job. There's a tremendous
Canadians are hurting because of Canadian policies. Give me a break, dude.
Amount of anxiety. And then to equate that to a hissy fit won't just come back for the Conservatives over the next 24, 48 hours. It's going to come back the next time we go to the polls, because that election attack ad is ready for an anti-conservative message, whether it comes from the NDP.
Yeah, non-DNA. You could be right. Nothing's guaranteed. But if you want to call in to the show, click the link. We can have a discussion if you want to. You can tell me why you think that Alberta, what does this say? 13% of ignorant yeet trash hicks in Alberta say they are MACA. Okay, well, call in the show if you're so smart then, buddy. Let's see how you do when I ask you questions about correct your ignorance. I will. I don't even know who you're talking about, but maybe me, maybe someone in the chat. Call into the show then, dude. 50% of Alberta says no to separation already. 50%? I mean, if you're correct there, you're like totally arguing against yourself. 50%. So what, 50% are for it? That means you need one voter. You need to convince one voter to get to 50.0001, and then you win. So good point there, dude. Not 50%. That's crazy. If you're correct, this would be a amazing scenario for Alberta independence.
Or the Liberals.
Rob? Well, JP, let the record show that I was one of the few people who thought that Mr. Jivani could be useful. And he has been useful, except not to the right side. He's been useful to the advancing the American interests. If he's talking about...
So we've watched a CTV panel and a CBC panel. These shows are supposed to represent Canada. Everybody disagrees with Jivani. This is obviously propaganda. It's like hyper propaganda. In no world is this fair.
Us pitching a hissy fit, he's not advancing Canada's
At least the American networks, some of the, like CNN, for example, I'll give CNN some credit here for sure. They'll have one or two people. I think CNN truly has gotten better at this. They'll have Scott Jennings or Kevin O'Leary or somebody on there to give the other side of the argument, like the actual mega point of view. Canada still doesn't do that. It's all agreeing with each other. Because I think the American networks, they used to have a liberal and a conservative like they kind of do here, but the conservative just agreed with the liberals. It was like those never Trump conservatives, sort of like that black guy that we saw on the CTV panel who sounded like a liberal. So, but at least maybe MS Now or whatever it's called, I think they're kind of the flip side of Fox, but even CBS, I think, in the States is trying to change their tune because this stuff is so corny. Anyone could do this. Even if this was a right-wing show and it was a bunch of right-wingers all agreeing with each other, I would find that corny too. Get someone on there that at least going to push back a little so we can test our ideas. How are you going to learn anything or know if you're correct if the entire exercise is, I agree with you. I agree with you.
the American interests. If he's talking about us pitching a hissy fit, he's not advancing Canada's interests. Now, who's responsible for where we are? It was the United States under Donald Trump that turned its back on its best friend. It was the United States under Donald Trump that scorned what it is we have to provide. He says we don't have anything that the United States needs. It was the United States that dismissed a trade pact that he himself signed. So I had hoped that Mr. Jivani could be useful because nobody sees the president of the United States. Nobody, unless a lot of machinery gets in gear, even if it's a kind of a walk by, drive by deal. Like that is a big deal. And I would have hoped that he would have used the opportunity to advance our interests. So where does that leave the Conservatives? I think the thing to watch for is 10 days from now, Mr. Poilievre is going to be holding a discussion in Toronto. I think it's at the Economic Club, where he will be discussing the Canada-U.S. relationship, and where I'm told that he is going to advance or evolve or shed light on his position. And it's part of, I think,
I don't know who you're calling a hick, non-DNA, but you need to learn English. You can't be calling people a hick. It's very hard to understand what you're saying because you have no command of the English language. Go back to school, man.
Series of policy speeches Mr. Poilievre intends to make over the next few months. I think that's where we're going to have to watch to see whether or not there is a common front. And there doesn't necessarily have to be a common front. I think there is room for Mr. Poilievre to oppose the government, to propose another approach. But I think that Mr. Jivani has an opportunity, and I think that he squandered it.
Yeah, Amanda, as Rob points out, I mean, it's pretty incredible that this MP has a 15-year friendship with J.D. Vance, that he was at his wedding. You know, they really do have a lot of history between these two, right? And it's certainly something that could be tapped into. I mean, as Rob points out, he can easily get an audience with...
It's a good point, Holly. This is a great point. Because they're not bent out of shape about Quebec, that's for sure.
Donald Trump. I mean, that's pretty impressive no matter what he accomplished. I mean, he obviously has an in there. Do you think that Poilievre should use Mr. Jivani more, maybe put him up as a point person on Canada-U.S. relations, or should they kind of stuff him in the back bench and forget that he even has that sort of connection?
I would hope his northern tour takes him into the Arctic if I were Pierre Poilievre over the next little bit. Like, I do not see any benefit. Jamil Jivani is not being a team player right now, right? The first time he announced his U.S. tour was the same day that Pierre Poilievre was in meeting with Prime Minister Carney.
It's not fair to not have anyone on here defending Jivani. It's not right. Yeah, it's actually, oh man, there's just so much to say about this. Anyway.
It's a significant thing for the opposition leader to do, and it's supposed to be a reset. Instead, he was stepping on that message.
There are so many issues, though, in Canada where they're seen as beyond the pale. So I'm sure CBC producers or whoever thinks, well, it's not appropriate to have anybody on here defending Jivani because what he did is so out of bounds, blah, blah, blah. There's so many issues in Canada that are just considered out of bounds. And same with Poilievre's mindset, I think. I think Poilievre considers so many issues out of bounds. I'm not even going to touch that, but that list of out of bounds topics is getting really, really long now. So Poilievre has now painted himself in his own, this is Poilievre's fault. He's painted himself into a corner where all he can talk about is carbon tax and the cost of groceries. And there's not much else. And that's Poilievre's fault for accepting this as the Overton window in Canada.
And this week is now even apologist for the Americans in some way, which to me is just not helpful. Yes, Mr. Jamil.
Yeah, no, I think MS Now or whatever is like the flip of whatever. I'm not saying MS Now has every perspective. I don't even think they try to do that. Like the Rachel Maddow shows and stuff like that. I don't think their claim is to be this balanced thing, but I think CNN has gotten a little better. Of course, you'll turn on CNN and you'll be like, wow, this is very liberal for the most part. But anyway.
Very, very intelligent. He's got many connections to the U.S. administration.
CNN is far more fair than the Canadian media networks. I would say that confidently.
I think he could be tremendously useful if he could be trusted. But it's the Jamil Jivani show, which is very apparent to me based on, I think, and all the people in this room. So how far can he be trusted to work with the prime minister or to advance anyone's interests? So I think it's unfortunate. I think Rob put it well, right? He squandered, I think, an opportunity to really help his country. And instead it is about self-promoting. And I think that's a real shame.
Yeah, Vandana, the other thing that Jivani said in that Breitbart interview is that he'd like to go to Washington with Mr. Carney. He'd like the two of them to go and be negotiators with Trump and others in the Capitol. And he said that, you know, maybe they can get something done for the country that's good. What's the prime minister's play here? Should he lean on Jivani or should he run away? Is there any use to Jivani in the government strategy?
I think given what he has said and that he's already shot himself in the foot, I don't think the prime minister, it makes any sense for him to use him. I think he's proven that he cannot be trusted, and this is really a vanity tour. And you've seen it before, like he was appointed by Doug Ford and was criticizing his education minister. He had a job in media for a bit and then that didn't work out for him. So I think he likes to just walk to like his own beat. And I think like, should this not have happened? I do appreciate, the concept of like, put me in coach, but then you have to wait for the play. And you have to work for what the strategy is the government's working in. I think he's already shown that he's unable to work within that. So while it could have been a very useful tool for us, and I think Mr. Carney would have absolutely used any help he had, even beyond partisan lines, I think at this moment, given what has come out of this tour and the comments he made, I don't see how Mr. Carney takes him on.
Brad, what about?
Yeah, and then no federal funding is a great point. Yeah. Yeah, MS Now it would have similar politics to CBC. I'd agree with that.
Poilievre and all this. I mean, as Rob points out, there will be a speech in the coming days where
MS Now doesn't, I mean, they can do that. Like, I guess if you want it, you know what I mean? A free speech, you can have that style. It doesn't make any sense for CBC to do this. It's so unfair, man. I really hope one day this changes because CBC gets over $1 billion in taxpayer funds every year. And then they just pump out leftist content. It's very unfair to Canada.
Will lay out what he thinks the strategy should be for the Canada-US file. That's a difference between now and what he did in January when he addressed party delegates at his convention in Calgary. He didn't even mention Trump by name, right? In that primetime speech, he sort of dodged the issue entirely. Where does the Conservative Party go on this issue? We know it's not going away. Trump still has 3 more years. When you look at the polling today from Abacus, Trump and the U.S. is still a top 3 issue. It is a major concern for voters, just below affordability and the cost of living. How do they craft a message on this that can, get them through the next 3 years of what could be a very rocky road?
Yeah, I think that in hindsight, Poilievre's inability to even mention Trump's name at his convention was a problem because it was noticeable. What I found interesting, though, is when I look...
It'll never be enough. Poilievre will be a weak leader, and these people they won't like him. So
that former Prime Minister Steve...
It makes no sense. It's so obvious that Poilievre, his strategy is failing. This is where I get the tinfoil hat on and say, does Poilievre even want to win? Because I don't think he does.
Harper, and he's doing quite a bit of media with his unveiling of the portrait. He held nothing back, mentioned the name quite often. So it'll be interesting to see the evolution.
This is true. A lot of American channels tell the truth on Canada far more than Canadians do, especially when there's like an issue that's even a little bit controversial, like the Tumbler Ridge story. It was far more accurate to listen to Americans talk about it than Canadians.
Of Poilievre's ability to speak to it, because you can try to push cost of living, and that is a top issue in the data set, and we'll talk about it. But Trump has this ability to get into our news, and he has this great ability to dominate the conversation in this country. And when you refuse to talk about the man or even have a position, you're leaving yourself wide open. The question is the coalition such like what we see at the United Conservative Party in Alberta with the separatists there, 16% of all of Daniel Smith's.
Yeah, but Joy Reid is, I think she just does a podcast now or something. She's not, I don't know what she does actually, but.
People are leaning towards separating. When you got to keep, the pro-Trump conservatives together in the coalition, the inability to speak to it, I think he's going to have to just say, you know what? if you like Donald Trump, you're not really going to go too many places. I know he had attack against the People's Party in previous elections, but to keep the coalition together, there's more to be gained by talking about Trump than there is by keeping the coalition together by trying to ignore him.
Rob?
I actually want to hear, he made that point very sloppy, but I think he said it'd be better for Poilievre to have Trump derangement syndrome, right?
So it'll be interesting to see the evolution of Poilievre's ability to speak to it, because you can try to push cost of living, and that is a top issue in the data set, and we'll talk about it. But Trump has this ability to get into our news, and he has this great ability to dominate the conversation in this country. And when you refuse to talk about the man or even have a position, you're leaving yourself wide open. The question is the coalition such like what we see at the United Conservative Party in Alberta with the separatists there? 16% of all of Daniel Smith's people are leaning towards separating. When you got to keep the pro-Trump conservatives together in the coalition, the inability to speak to it, I think he's going to have to just say, you know what? If you like Donald Trump, you're not really going to go too many places. I know he had attack.
Okay, so if you like, I think he's talking about just conservative voters. If you like Donald Trump, I like Donald Trump, but does this guy think that there's maybe hardly any conservatives in Canada that like Donald Trump?
The inability to speak to it.
He's making his point terribly, but I'll try to read between the lines.
I think he's going to have to just say, you know what? If you like Donald Trump, you're not really going to go too many places. I know he had attack against the People's Party in previous elections.
This guy thinks Poilievre should just totally distance himself from people that like Trump. I think Poilievre is already doing that, though.
But to keep the coalition together, there's more to be gained by talking about Trump than there is by keeping the coalition together by
No, there isn't. People are never going to like him. They'll say, oh, that was great, but I still think Poilievre is a far-right extremist, even if he's acting like a centrist. This is totally incorrect, but whatever. I've already made this point.
Trying to ignore him.
Rob?
I'm not sure I would have advised him to talk about Trump at that party convention. His job was to hang on to his leadership. He is doing the right thing now. You cannot ignore it. The problem with not talking about it when the convention was on was that the father of the modern Conservative Party, Stephen Harper, was talking.
You can come in on your phone, I'm sure. Just phones have microphones.
About it and talking about it quite eloquently.
Yeah.
So it was going to be hard for Mr. Poilievre not to shiver in the shadow of Stephen Harper. That it was that event that I think made Mr. Poilievre's silence on the matter more jarring. But tactically, I don't think he could have said that then. He would have alienated people that he was trying to win over. Now is the time to do it. Let's see what he does. Let's see where he goes.
So basically he's saying, Poilievre, be more like Carney. Why? Poilievre will listen to him, though, I bet. He probably will. Oh, man.
Let's see which path he takes in order to try and come to a resolution. I think the longer we go without a deal with the United States, the more the question arises. I know we're going to talk about...
What's the point of having political parties if you want them all to have the same point of view?
Polling, and we're going to talk about the possibility of an election as a result of polling. But we ran an election last time on Mr. Carney being best positioned to deal with Donald Trump. We don't have a deal with Donald Trump. So what is the next?
Carney will still win that over, though. Carney has that part of the Canadian voter market cornered. People still think he's the most elbows up and the person to deal with Trump. It's crazy, but he'll win on that.
Election going to be on? What is the pretext for the next election if you're the Liberals? Again, there is an opening for a Conservative leader in this scenario, but let's see how adroit Poilievre is going to be.
Adroit. Okay, I'm going to finish there. I will just read some of these chats. Hope Legacy Media. Joyless read. I'll put something on as I read, but
of our priorities are going to be in there, and who knows, right? So I'm trying to avoid that, and that's one of the reasons why I bring up the Mexico example, is just to show to Canadians this is, again, not about taking sides on whether you like the US government or you don't. This is not about elbows up or elbows
Thank you.
down. This is about real things happening that are going to affect our economy and wanting us to be part of those conversations as much as possible.
Deciding whether or not to stay in the race or leave the race, but there were many Democrats who were like willing to toss their hat in the ring, but they just.
There's some American politics.
Like you made any progress. You're going to have, of course, the doubters. And as you said earlier, some will be in good faith, some will be in bad. But people will say, well, he's not in the government, so could he actually have made any difference, any progress?
Well, I think certainly on the relationship side of things, which is very important, I made tremendous progress. There has not been a Canadian who has had that combination of meetings in a 3-day span, maybe ever, but certainly not in months. So I think we've laid some good foundation for future dialogue. But I will say to the good faith critics, they're correct. I am not able to speak on behalf of the government. I am not the prime minister. I am not a member of his cabinet. So there's only so much I can do without collaboration, which is why my entire message has been, I want to work with Prime Minister Carney. I want to work with Minister LeBlanc. I want to help where I can. I am not able to act on behalf of Canada, surely, but I am able to help. And that's what I believe I accomplished and will continue to work on. And as I said, this is not over. This is not a one-off. I am in this. I am involved. I am going to continue doing everything I can to move the ball forward. And my hope is that instead of it being parallel to the government's efforts, it is in line with the government's efforts. And Brian, I think it would be amazing if I actually got to go down there with Prime Minister Carney and with Minister LeBlanc, and we could go down there to Washington with a unified front. That would be incredible. And I made that offer, and I hope they take me up on it.
Well, when Donald Trump was inaugurated.
Yeah, that's a great way to end the video, I think. And just on Jivani here on X. A lot of people were very mad about this. Obviously, we covered a lot of people. Everyone on CTV and CBC was against this, which is crazy. Another person to advance Jivani's interest. I've seen this person be very TDS on X before, for sure. Anyway, I'll finish the stream there. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, please subscribe. Oh, someone's here. I'll talk to this person quick. Yeah, whatever. I'll add you on. I was gonna go, but who cares? We'll have a short chat. Hello.
I'll add you on. I was gonna go, but who cares? We'll have a short chat.
Okay, hold on. I got.
Hello. I was gonna go. We'll have a short chat.
Hello.
Hey, I think it's better now. Just turn off the stream. Yeah, that's good. How's it going?
I'm doing good. I don't really think Giovanni would do anything, to be honest.
You don't think he was doing anything?
No, a lot of people says it's just a stunt.
Just a stunt. So I forget what your point of view was. You didn't think Jivani going down to Washington was a good move, right?
No, not really.
So okay,
he has no power of anything.
No power. Yeah, well, that's true. He doesn't have any power, but he's friends with JD Vance, and he can try to work that relationship. And I think Jivani, we just covered there, he wants to hopefully go down in the future with Mark Carney and try to help Mark Carney with the relationship.
But I would recommend what? No. Do you know the channel, the Bill Kelly podcast?
The what? The which podcast?
The Bill Kelly podcast.
No, the Bell Katie. Sorry, I don't even know what you're saying. Bell Katie.
He's a YouTuber that talk aussi de politique. He talk about Jamil Jivani.
No, I don't know what this is.
Mais if you go on YouTube, mettons, you go write Bill Kelly podcast, he talk about him. He's pretty coherent explanation.
Yeah, what do they say in the podcast that you agree with?
Mais c'est parce I cannot understand everything, so you should watch it.
I know, but what do you think though? You think Jivani going down there is not great because he can't really do
Parce
anything?
he doesn't know what, the nuance with Donald Trump, so he cannot do much.
He doesn't know the nuance?
The nuance, parce he does not really, because Donald Trump is not a kind of person that can be convinced. Because, parce que do you know the story about the Ambassador Bridge?
Yes, but what do you mean he can't be convinced because Canada has to deal with Trump whether people like it or not. There's no way to get around it. He's still going to be the president for the next 3 years.
Yeah, but parce que the thing is, yes, he said that like Donald Trump said we love us, but 5 days later he critiqued the ambassador bridge.
Yeah.
Says and critique us to be critique us that we abuse them for 10 years or so.
Yeah.
So that doesn't make sense.
Do you think that Canada has been a really good partner to the Americans in the last 10 years?
Depend on the leader, but I'm pretty sure when Biden was a president, it was way better than Trump.
Right, but do you think it's fair that Canada has underfunded NATO for quite some time under the 2% target, and America's been way above the 2% target?
Man, I know Mark Carney is dictated on the of the army. That's it.
What?
He's dictated to rebuild the army.
Yeah, I think Carney's been a little better than Trudeau. I think he's said finally that we're going to hit the 2%. But do you think that's fair though? Like if you're an American, do you think it's fair for you to constantly be protecting the world, including Canada, spending a bunch of money on military when, like, for example, Canada has public health care. It's not the greatest anymore, but we do have free health care. America doesn't, but a lot of those tax dollars go toward military, and Canada as a proportion spends way less on military. Do you think that's fair from an American perspective?
But he was about to do that. They were about to get like fighter jets from Sweden and submarine from Turkey, and they possibly to build their own jet and submarines.
Are you talking about, yeah, I know, but it's potential. It's been that disparity's been happening for a long time with military, and that's all, like, facts. That's stuff that's happening in the future. What potentially could happen is still up in the air. But like, I don't know, just do you think that's fair? Like, at what point is America supposed to look at Canada and say,
well, man,
maybe we don't need to be that nice to them constantly when they're prioritizing climate change and prioritizing a bunch of other DEI stuff or whatever. The Canadian priorities lately have not been focused on economic growth. America still pursues capitalism, and America protects the world. America has a big trade deficit with Canada. Like, I don't know. Do you think Canada has been a great neighbor to America?
Yeah, well, for me, for the most part, yes.
For the most part, like, there's never been any real tension, but I think Canada's been freeloading off America, and I think eventually someone that got elected to the White House was going to say, "What are we doing here?"
But it's just because I watch a lot of American politics, and for me, I'm not really a Trump fan.
Whatever. It doesn't sound like it. That's fine. Are you more like the Democrats?
A bit, yeah, but
whatever. That's fine.
But I always try to find the nuance of what people like. So, and if you watch like independent politics on the American side, and then Trump is not really the person to manage the Americans.
Yeah, I think Trump's doing a good job so far for sure. Who do you think in Canada? Do you think there will be an election soon? And who do you think will win? Like, are you a Carney
I
guy?
don't really see the point to doing that.
You don't see the point?
No. But if you want to have a majority or anything like that, maybe. But I would prefer to keep going.
Yeah.
And as for Pierre, I think he should cooperate more with the federals.
Yeah, that I don't agree with that at all because I think that's what Pierre's been doing, and he keeps plummeting in the polls because like, for example, here, like, are you you don't have to say. I mean, you can answer any question any way you want, of course, but would Poilievre win your vote if he was more cooperative with Carney? Would you vote for Poilievre?
Unless unless he changes his narrative, maybe, but not at the moment.
Okay, but how like much cooperation would Poilievre have to do before you'd even consider voting for him? Because I think this is the problem.
But if he can accept some project on the.
This point here.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. Just I think people. I'm not trying to signal out you, but people with your perspective, I think they want Poilievre to play nice, but they'll never vote for him. So all Poilievre does by doing that is, yes, people with your politics, maybe they'll like him more and they'll see him less Trumpy, but they won't vote for him. And then Poilievre will alienate people like me that want him to actually be a conservative. And I think there are millions of Canadians out there that will just stay home because they'll say, what's the point? We're going to get the same guy as Carney if we vote for Poilievre. But anyway, yeah.
But do you think is what do you think is better? Is to have one trade partner or multiple ones?
Sorry, you say multiple partners?
Trade partners.
Sorry, I don't understand. Multiple trade partners?
Well, our only best partner is the United States, but if we have multiple trade partner like in Europe.
Yeah, I think look, you could try to diversify the trade a bit if you want. I think that I have no problem actually with that, trading more with whoever, Europe, Latin America, Asia, but you can spend the next 10 years trying to diversify that away, and you're not going to chip into the margins that much. Maybe you can get the U.S. share to 62%, 64. Like USA is always going to be by far the most important country to Canada. So
I know, but
diversify it away, and that you should trade with the world. But I don't think Canada's biggest problems, even close, are our trade relationships.
Well, the objective for Carney is not to separate from the United States, but just be less independent.
Yeah, I know, but that's been whatever. Like that, I don't think is Canada's biggest problem. I know the country is swept up in elbows up stuff, but our biggest problem, I think, we have way too much immigration. We have a very low fertility rate. We have very low economic growth. We have very expensive homes. Most of our problems are domestic problems. So I think you can focus on the trade a little bit, like any country needs to focus on multiple things at once. But
think about probably
way bigger problems than our trade relationships.
But they will probably change eventually because in March they removed they lowered the tariff on the canola and the seafood and beef, everything. That would bring help more the farmers and give more money to the country.
I hope so. I mean, a little bit, sure, and all this stuff can add up, but.
Do you think it's a good start?
For a long time has had a terrible climate policy and a terrible immigration policy. So you got to focus on what you're saying. Sure, probably will help a little bit.
But they're supposed to see a good factory. I know you guys have a suit probably with the Chinese cars, but if he put the factory, he would probably create a more job. That we grow the economy a bit more.
I
Same
mean,
thing
I
with
hope
same,
so.
see,
It sounds like sort of like the talking points on the TV, but whatever. I'm not sure, but that's small potatoes in the context of an entire country.
and same thing with the submarine and
I don't think the Americans are going to be thrilled with a bunch of Chinese electric vehicles roaming around the streets in Canada. There's no way they're going to like that. Even Doug Ford said that. I don't think they're going to let those cars even go in to America. Let's just talk for maybe 3 more minutes, and then I'm going to end the stream. But
anyway, I have to go anyway because I have to go outside. But nice talking to you.
You too. Well, make your final point, and then we'll go. Because I think you were saying something.
For me, I have a good feeling with Carney, to be honest.
Yeah,
that's my point. That's my opinion. But you have the right to disagree.
Yeah, you can. That's fine. You like Carney. That's all good. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for coming on. Come on again in the future if you want to, and we'll
all right. Have a great night.
You too. Thanks for coming on. See you, man.
See ya.
Okay, cool. Shout out to Maple Boy. Give the guy credit. At least he came on, unlike other people that. But I think Maple. I don't even remember what he said. But shout out to Maple Boy. Anyway, I'll finish the video. Thanks everyone for watching. Please like. Please subscribe. Have a great day.